understand the context in which another mind operates.
Wow.
And thus we were led to the infamous saying about the State Department, that it took 6 years for a foreigner to become an American. This was in the 50s. But it only took 6 months for an American to become a foreigner when you stuck him in the State Department.
Yeah. Oh,
and really, how true, right?
Oh, absolutely true. Good grief. Where have, and I'm going back to actual languages now, where have we gone wrong? One of the areas I know is when my grandfather came over from Germany, and I've talked to a lot of people just recently, and their attitude is, we are going to be Americans. We do not want to speak our native language here. So my father grew up never learning German. And oh my gosh, if I could have learned German and French and what have you, I mean...
Oh, it's truly marvelous to be able to have internalized those languages.
Yes, right. But you have to do that before the age of 8.
There's 2 windows. Having done a lot of research for my Vortex speed reading program, which lets you read up to 2,000 words per minute from computers, I had to examine how language was used and the structure of the brain and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things we learned was that there's 2 very broad windows. And curiously, you're about to enter one of them. That is to say, in the late 50s, sometimes between 55 and 58, a small subset, but significant, maybe 25 to 30% of the population gets into another language learning window, in which time they can actually internalize it as though they were 8 to 11 years old.
Interesting, except I've lost it already.
Oh, well, okay, well, blew that one.
Yeah. Let me tell you, many years ago when I had my institute in New York, I came across an idea, because years before that, I had taken Evelyn Wood's Reading Dynamics. And to me, she was one of the most incredible human beings ever, because she came up with this idea of speed reading. And I took her class, and immediately after, I was reading about 2,500 to 3,000 words a minute. And then I said, boy, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the Bible. You can't speed read the Bible. And
Understandable.
And it ruined it. But I still know the technique.
Well, here's why you can't speed read the Bible. It does not have so much to do with the book as the limitations that you're fighting within your own brain relative to your own personal lexicon, which gets us back to the word changes. Everybody walks around that knows English, immigrant, native born, or whatever, that's ever gotten to the point of internalizing the language. And you may know anywhere from 50 to, say, 100,000 or even 200,000 words to some degree. But realistically, the vast majority of people, with English in particular, are using maybe 11,000 words in a whole year. And ritualistically almost, they're only really using, say, a subset of between 6,000 and 8,000 on any given week. And it varies ever so slightly. And what we're looking for is the change. Why this particular word this week as opposed to this other word the last week in the same subject.
Yeah.
But that's what you'd run into. If you'd had a lexicon that allowed you to look at the language in which the Bible was structured, you could have probably done speed reading. Sort of makes sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because we find that same thing with Vortex. Vortex is a computer program that you can go to Half Past Human and read all about it there. And what you do is you put it on your PC running Windows, and you paste in a large document that you've copied from somewhere. And you can run this, and it just set a speed, and it'll splash the word on the screen for you in really huge letters and absolutely garish colors. We're not responsible for whatever color combinations you pick, so be careful. I personally use yellow letters on black background or vice versa because of the high contrast and poor eyesight. In any event, you can tweak it up and let it go at about 2,000 words per minute. But we find, of course, that I might be able to read 2,000 words per minute, but if you were to put a legal text in there, it's like, whoa, wait a second. In order for me to understand, that is to adapt my lexicon, search out the meaning of all of those words, I'm going to slow it down.
Right.
Same limitation with her approach. As if you're willing to extend your vocabulary, I'm pretty sure that it would work no matter what, even if you were to suddenly take up, say, chemical engineering.
Interesting. One of the things that I did, I ran an experiment. because I had an idea that I could teach a person a foreign language to speak it fluently with no accent and have about a 2,000-word vocabulary in 30 days. And we did it. And the people were not even basically aware that they were learning it. And all of a sudden it just started to become part of them because the techniques that I have developed over the years, Cliff, is I teach a person how to consciously function within the subconscious mind. That's what I do.
Right.
So I think in almost any scholastic field, and I don't care what it is, whether it's a foreign language, whether it's mathematics or chemistry or whatever, I think I can teach a person almost an unlimited amount of knowledge in a very, very short period of time without them struggling, studying, memorizing, and all the other stuff. And it's very, very simple.
Just a matter of finding out how the mind wants to learn and providing it by the shovel load.
Yeah, and then going into that level of human consciousness where the information is brought in and processed, and especially as young kids up to the age of 8.
Right.
And it happens to be an area of brain function called the theta state, which is I would say, the most important level of human consciousness there is. And I could go into it, but this is not my show tonight, it's yours.
Okay. But it's fascinating because, of course, it comes right back to the whole idea of the acquisition of knowledge and the representation of it. For instance, you were talking about teaching people and basically operating at a level below the conscious mind filters. Mm-hmm. And our Vortex program does that by shoveling the words in so fast that you jump through this grapheme stage where the word is painted in your visual cortex right over to the phoneme stage where it's matched up in your word center. And sort of it was kind of an offshoot of that got me thinking about words, which led to our current program. And then I started discovering in 1997 that things just didn't add up as I expected them. And rather than try and shoehorn them into the program, I wasn't trying to make money with it, really. I just decided to follow the trail to see where it would lead. Yeah. And we end up with what George Ure termed web bots, and it's kind of stuck. And it's sort of a automated way of looking for those complex patterns in the seeming chaos of and randomness that's out there in language. And so far it's been reasonably good for those people that originally had and still do put up the majority of the money for the bandwidth.
Wow. Okay.
They're using it for things such as, investing in gold and silver months ago, and all of a sudden I guess they're getting a 10 and 20% return per month on their investment.
I was just going to ask you, with the runs that you're doing now and the people that you're working with or for, however you put it, what has their average return been? So, and you just told me about 40% per month?
Depending on 10 to 20%, depending on what particular aspect of it they took notice of. Bear in mind, what we do is we shovel out a lot of words in an interpretation around the changes that we find. Right. And then what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to sift through this and say, okay, this relates to my field of, hedging currency trades against petroleum, whatever the hell, and thus I can use it this way because it tells me that there's a particular emotional wave out there that I can catch right now that others don't yet see developing.
You just made almost a magic word, and that is, here we are dealing with supposedly a very non-emotional machine-type operation, and yet you're saying that the words carry so much emotion with them. Wow. And
that's really the whole point of most of the processing, by the way, is just taking these arbitrary values that we've assigned to emotional attributes around words and summing them up and looking for differences from the last time we swept this particular spot.
Yeah.
And then, curiously, we take that emotional sum, and we don't try and find out the words, not immediately, that cause that emotional sum, but we relate it back over to our lexicon, where we've got all the words that, I mean, there might be, say, we come up with a number from Summing Our Garden forum where it had a blood sausage in it, reference in it. And because of the proximity, we've given blood and sausage a particular weight, an emotional weight, and because of the fact that it's in a gardening forum where they should be discussing pansies, it has a context abnormality weight. And these are a number of different elements within our multidimensional array, which could potentially reach 640 places attached to each word, but we hardly ever get that many numeric values out of words. In any event, we then match it up to our lexicon. We've got about 500,000 words in it now, English and non-English, Roman alphabet, non-Roman alphabet, in which we've got an emotional weight. So we might have a word in English that might describe excrement. We might find the same word in French, and we might find the same word in Russian. And so we've got all three of those words, and they all have the same emotional value.
Okay.
And combined with other words, like in Russian it might be что железо, you get the kind of an idea of excitement or whatever. And in German you might say, was ist los in das Gasthaus? You know, sort of like, what's up in the saloon? As though there might be something happening, right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, and so you end up with an emotional quotient from that. And we link that back to our lexicon, and then we hunt through all those words, and we just get this big group. So we might, for instance, know that this particular garden forum has suddenly got a 505 value in a particular emotional value in one of our columns in a giant sort of a multidimensional spreadsheet. We then take that 505 value and go back and find all the words that have 505 associated with them in that same value within our lexicon to see where we're shading towards. And then we might end up with, if we're lucky, 15 words.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not so lucky, maybe 20,000. And that's where we get into the interpretation of it.
Yeah, wow. Amazing.
It's,
yeah.
We've gotten some real good hits here recently.
Wow.
For instance, the previous time that we had spoken, I think you'll recall that we had discussed about NASA and some of the stuff we'd said.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
Was that last time or the time before?
Time before.
Okay. And we were discussing in a broad sense that NASA was going to run into some kind of issues, that were going to change its relationship to the population,
right.
That there were going to be issues involving money and secrets revealed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And we've seen a number of those pop up.
And that's the ones that have come out publicly.
Correct. One of them recently was the head of NASA saying, oops, it was a big mistake to put all this money into the International Space Station and the Space Shuttle. And that sort of fit within our secrets revealed and coming out publicly and doing all of that kind of thing. And most recently, in this last, each run is composed of maybe anywhere from 60 to 90 million reads, and we get about 6 reports out of it. Each report takes us about a week to compile. And so we're on part 5 now. And the way we normally work is we look for immediacy values in the first couple of reports, kind of like saying, okay, what's up in the next week or two?
Yeah, right.
And then in the week 3 and 4, we might look for the longer range. And then actually, by the time we get to week 5, we're gaining a whole lot of immediacy values that we hadn't processed yet. And that's kind of where we were at. And so when we posted on Friday last, there was this section in there about dark space difficulty.
Right.
And curiously, we also had more references to NASA having kind of like, let's say, relationship issues with the American public and the funding, etc. And now we're getting rumors that NASA's broke and all of this sort of thing. And then also, curiously, apparently NASA's going to have a news conference tomorrow or Thursday, as I recall.
Oh, really?
And address something about gamma ray bursts.
Well, I saw some articles on it already.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I've been working. I haven't had time to read anything. I've just been processing all these numbers.
Matter of fact,
but in any event, one of the things that we kept seeing within the data that showed up in this past week 5 was that we're going to be facing some level of dark space difficulty, and perhaps this relates to the gamma ray bursts.
It just came in tonight. When I say, it came in before, it just came in from tonight from my dear friend Neil Freer. Sent it to me. Let me pull it up, and I'll tell you when it was actually written and where it was. It is on Clif, if you want to